The South China Sea is one of the most beautiful regions on the planet, but beneath its deep blue waters lies the world's most explosive geopolitical conflict. A conflict that could determine who controls Asian trade routes, who dominates global military power, and which superpower, China or the United States, will shape the future of the 21st century. To understand why this region has become the center of global tension, we need to go back decades, long before aircraft carriers and radar systems filled these waters. The South China Sea has always been a crossroads of civilizations. For centuries, merchants, fishermen, and empires crossed these waters, connecting Asia to the world. But today, the sea has transformed into something far more important, one of the busiest trade routes on Earth, home to $3.4 trillion in annual trade, rich in oil, gas, and rare minerals. Surrounded by powerful nations with competing claims, and strategically vital for military control of the entire Indo-Pacific, China sees the region as its historical territory, its backyard, its maritime legacy. The United States sees it as an international waterway that must remain free for everyone, and in between, countries like the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Taiwan are caught in a geopolitical tug-of-war. China's expansion began subtly, new maps, new claims, new Coast Guard patrols, but soon it escalated. China started building islands, not discovering them, creating them. Massive dredging ships sucked sand from the seafloor and piled it onto reefs, turning them into military outposts. Runways appeared, missile shelters appeared, radar domes appeared, all on islands that did not exist 10 years ago. To China, this was defensive. To the U.S., it was the beginning of military domination. But why now? Why risk conflict with the world's most powerful navy? Why turn a tropical sea into a militarized fortress? The answer is simple: control this sea and you control Asia's future. The United States has responded with freedom of navigation operations, sending warships directly through waters China claims as its own. Each time a U.S. destroyer enters the area, Chinese vessels shadow it, broadcast warnings, and approach dangerously close. All it takes is one collision, one miscalculation, one aggressive maneuver, and the world could face its first major naval conflict between nuclear superpowers. This is not a local issue. This is not about a few reefs or small islands. This is about global dominance, and the showdown has already begun. China's strategy in the South China Sea isn't reckless. It's calculated, methodical, and years ahead of its rivals. Beijing understands something fundamental. You don't need to fire a shot to win a war. You just need to control the environment. And China began doing exactly that. First, the legal strategy. China drew a sweeping boundary called the Nine-Dash Line, claiming almost the entire South China Sea based on ancient maps and historical usage. International courts ruled the claim invalid, but China rejected the ruling, insisting history was on its side. Next came the salami-slicing strategy. Not one big aggressive move, but hundreds of tiny moves that slowly shift the balance of power. New Coast Guard patrols, construction of lighthouses, deployment of maritime militia, harassment of foreign fishing boats, radio warnings to U.S. aircraft. And of course, the island-building campaign. Each action is small, but together they transform the region without triggering a full-scale war. The key to China's plan? Establish facts on the ground, or in this case, facts on the water. If China can maintain a constant presence, ships, planes, radar, ports, eventually the world will accept its dominance as the new normal. Now enters the United States. To Washington, China is not just claiming islands. It's rewriting the rules of the global order. Rules the U.S. has enforced for 70 years. The U.S. sends destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and surveillance planes. Each mission sends the same message. International waters are for everyone, not China alone. China responds with its own message. You are in our territory. Leave immediately. Radio exchanges between both militaries happen almost daily. The tone grows sharper every year. But the real danger? It's not intentional conflict. It's accidental escalation. What happens if a Chinese ship miscalculates distance and collides with a U.S. destroyer? What happens if a U.S. surveillance plane gets too close to a Chinese fighter jet? What happens if a missile radar locks on by mistake? Conflicts between superpowers rarely start with a declaration. They start with misunderstandings and pride. And in the South China Sea, pride is everywhere. The South China Sea is approaching a point of no return. Both nations refuse to step back. Both claim they are protecting peace, and both believe the other is the aggressor. China now controls more ships in the region than any nation in history. Its Coast Guard vessels are the largest in the world. Its island bases can launch fighters, missiles, and drones. The United States counters with its allies: Japan, Australia, the Philippines, and increasingly, India. Together, they form a chain of military cooperation surrounding China's expansion. This is not just a regional rivalry. It is the defining conflict of our century, and the world is quietly choosing sides. So what happens next? There are three possible futures. Future one, a cold peace. China dominates the region quietly. The U.S. continues patrols. Small nations adapt to the new reality. No war, but constant tension. Future two, a naval skirmish. A miscalculation sparks a confrontation, a collision, a warning shot, or an accidental missile lock. It doesn't escalate into full war, but it shocks the global economy and terrifies the world. Future three, a war. No one wants. This is the nightmare scenario. China blockades an island. The U.S. responds with force. Allies join in. Trade routes collapse. Oil prices skyrocket. Global markets fall. Millions of lives change overnight. Both nations know this outcome is catastrophic. And yet, history has shown that when superpowers collide, logic does not always win. The South China Sea isn't just water. It's a warning. A mirror showing us how fragile global peace really is. The question is not, will the U.S. or China win? The real question is, how long can the world avoid a war in the most dangerous sea on Earth?